Are hybrid protein products the future of food? I mean, the first question we need to ask ourselves to decide whether they are the future of food is, firstly, what are hybrid products? And my definition is a fairly simple definition because I think it's very hard to be definitive on what a hybrid product is. And I use a very simple definition, which is basically, products containing significant amounts of ingredients not usually associated with that product. So when you look at things like a typical one, of course, on the screen here, we have meat, we have mushrooms, we have peas. So we have a product like a hamburger patty, which contains a significant amount of ingredients you wouldn't normally associate being in a hamburger patty, or certainly that the manufacturer normally wouldn't want to know was in there. I mean, we've been adding plant products to meat products like hamburgers and sausages for a long, long time. But they've been added to fill the product out and make the product cheaper, as well as some functionality even in higher end products. But now what we're finding is people are actually bragging, they're touting the fact that it contains plant-based products. And that's the real difference between what we might have called the cheap filled products of the past and now hybrid products. And moving on from there, and the cover off and summarize some of the things that Mike's talked about just before, is why do we need them? Well, we've mentioned flexitarians, and they are definitely a large and growing part of the market. And somewhere between 20 and 30% of people claim to be either pursuing a flexitarian diet or reducitarian. And reducitarian has a very slightly different meaning to flexitarian, in that reducitarian is concentrating on reducing meat. And I think there's a subtle difference between those. As Mike pointed out, 25% of consumers want to increase their vegetable and their fruit consumption. But what are they going to reduce as a result? Or are they simply going to add that on top of their diet? So in reducitarians, they're consciously reducing the amount of meat or animal-based products that they have in their diet. And as Mike talked about, environmental benefits as well. Particularly, you look at the usual, people talk about millennials and Gen Zs, certainly a focus on sustainability and a focus on the environmental benefits of plant-based products and other alternative proteins compared to meat is a major factor in looking at hybrid products. Health and nutrition. If you look at that health and nutrition side of things, growing in importance under COVID-19, as Mike pointed out, people want to be healthier. They associate plant-based products with increased health. And that health and nutrition also can bring to traditional products things they've never had before. So your hamburger patties don't have fiber. You put plant-based ingredients in there or other ingredients in there, like algal ingredients or biomass ingredients. You can basically add fiber to the product and or protein, because one of the things that consumers are really focusing on a lot at the moment is their protein content. Are they getting enough protein in their diet? And you can also look at other nutrients in there as well. So other things, other alternatives to conventional meat to make a hybrid product, say like algae. You can have omega-6, omega-3 fatty acids in there. So again, you're adding something to the product and actually improving the health and nutrition benefits by having a hybrid product. And flavor. And I think as Mike pointed out, flavor is still king. Some surveys say that 60% of people say they would eat less meat if there were better options available. If the products that were out there tasted better than they currently do, people would eat less meat and they would eat more alternative or hybrid products. So I think that's a real key thing to look for, is no matter about the health and nutrition, no matter the environmental, only the real hardcore will say, I know this doesn't taste any good, but it's good for my health and good for the environment. I think that's a very short-term impact. I don't think many people are going to be able to maintain that. And also, if we look at this from the point of view of personalized food, we're seeing more and more personalization come into our lives, whether it's everything from the Siri and Bixby and everything else on our mobile phones. I had an update on my Office 365 the other day, and I had an email. I clicked on the email, started typing, and it says, I think you might have a task associated with that email. And it pointed me to another email where I'd said I would get back to that person on something. So personalization just come into us everywhere. And personalization in food for our health, for our cognitive, emotional, as well as physical health is going to be very important. And because of our ability to manipulate hybrid products by the ingredients we put in, we're going to achieve a much higher degree of personalization than we can just with the conventional animal product, whether it be meat or dairy. We can actually manipulate the product to make it better for groups of consumers. At the moment, there's no way of ensuring that I get one milk and Mike gets another type of milk or whatever, tailored exactly to us personally, a million different milks. But we can get some degree of personalization. And then looking on from there with these hybrid products, what are some of the options? What are some of the things that you can use to make hybrid products? Well, the obvious one is plant-based. I mean, that's really come to the fore in the last 3 or 4 years. Firstly, obviously through alternative dairy products, and then now alternative meat products. So plant-based, definitely out there, but there's more than just plant-based. We look at fungi. Corn is another one out of the UK that's been around a long time, been a real traditional vegan, vegetarian product. They're certainly upping their game at the moment, looking to improve their products because there are very desirable plant-based products coming to market and a lot more competition than they're used to. Mushrooms are another one. Mushrooms are really good because in the plant kingdom, they're probably the closest in their native form, if you like, to meat than anything else in the plant or the alternative kingdom. And people associate mushrooms with meat. They have no problems. You're going to put mushrooms in my meat? Yeah, mushrooms go with meat. I like mushrooms. So I think mushrooms have got a very good place in the manufacture of hybrid products. Another one that's out is, of course, algae. There are a couple of algae burgers out already, I think, in Europe. And algae have got a very, very good amino acid profile, virtually complete amino acid profile, omega-3, omega-6, micronutrients. They're a very, very good basis in product for making products. Obviously, the algae seaweedy taste is something that can hold them back on occasions, but certainly that's well up in the priorities of the algal companies, the algal bioeconomy, to make these products acceptable to consumers and remove some of these more objectionable flavors and odors. And then we've got what I'm calling biomass. Now, what's biomass? If you think of biomass simply as if you've got yeast, you grow yeast, you filter everything else, and you have a whole lump of yeast, that is essentially biomass. And there are a lot of companies out there now who are looking at manufacturing biomass. One is a company called Solar Foods out of Finland, and they use solar energy to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. They pull CO2 out of the air, add some other nutrients, and they make basically a high protein powder. And these things, again, have very, very good amino acid profiles, almost complete, like things like whey protein. They can approach whey protein in their digestibility. So biomass products have got a very, very good place in manufacturing hybrid products. And let's not forget insects. While we may say yuck to insects, 2 billion people around the world regularly eat insects. And one of the biggest insect companies is Insect, which is based in France. They have a massive factory making black soldier flies. So, that'd be yellow beetles. So that's really got something as well. Now, 2 billion people is a lot of people, whether in Western industrialized countries, in Europe, Australia, and the US want to eat insects. Well, you've still got 2 billion people that do. That's nearly 25% or more of the population. So insects have probably got a place long-term in our hybrid products as well. And last but certainly not least, the area that has enormous potential for hybrid products is cellular agriculture. Now, I'm not going to steal the thunder of the other presenters coming up, but just to mention that hybrid products from cellular agriculture, that has some enormous opportunities. I'll touch on that a little bit later on, but not in any depth. So others listening, don't worry, I'm not stealing all your thunder. So let's have a look at what's on the market now. What, if you like, is the state of the art in what's on the marketplace? What can you go to a supermarket and buy? Well, there's a wide range of products, both retail and food service, and they are particularly, of course, in the alternative meat products and alternative dairy. For example, in Europe, Danish crown 50-50, 50% pork, 50% vegetables. Yes, I did use Google Translate to translate Grand Gris, so it wasn't that I can read Danish. Apologies for my pronunciation from any Danes listening. We also have on the market, coming into alternative hybrid dairy products, the laughing cow, la vache qui rit, and they are going to start bringing out hybrid plant-based and animal-based products. So when you see these things coming out, this is definitely telling us that hybrid products are not simply a flash in the pan or a passing fad. That's backed up also when you look overseas. If you look at the US, Applegate, they've got a beef and mushroom burger. As I said, mushrooms have got a really good flavor profile. They've got great potential. Some work was done, I believe it was in the UK, where they tested a 30% mushroom burger with 100% beef burger, slight preference on flavor for the mushroom product. So there are products based around plant-based, hybrid products in particular, that are at least as desirable as the standard, the conventional animal agriculture products. And if we move on to dairy, we have in the US, Live Real Farms, dairy and almond milk blend, dairy and oat milk blends has just recently come out. So looking again, we're looking at hybrid products here as well. Now, moving on to the UK, into just a brief look at the QSR sector, chain called Brewdog, they have the hybrid burger. And they actually take 50% beef and 50% Beyond Meat burger and use that to make their hybrid burger. And there was a lot going on, and Mike probably knows way more than I do, a lot of hoo-ha on this one when Brewdog came out with a 50-50 burger. They was like, what are these people doing? You know, they're what they thought, desecrating beef or something like that. But that's turned out, for what I can see, to be a pretty popular product. They've actually now, I think, Brewdog say 50% of their menu is now plant-based. So these hybrid products, we've seen an ever-increasing number of them come out, and I think there's various reasons for that. So if we look at where we are, the question that's posed actually at the start of the whole webinar, which is, are they a fake innovation or an ingenious idea for flexitarians? So we're going to look at that and consider whether these are they flash in the pan products, and do they have a future? And we've got to look at, there's a whole continuum of products on the marketplace which will continue to coexist for quite some time, I'm estimating for decades. And that's non-animal products completely. So whether that's a Beyond Meat or an Impossible Burger or an Awesome Burger, whatever it is, going to see purely plant-based products on the marketplace. There's also what we're talking about here, which are the hybrid products, and then there's a conventional animal. I mean, how hybrid is hybrid? If you put 10% in, is that hybrid? Is it 50% to be hybrid? Is it 5% to be hybrid? What makes a hybrid? I don't think anyone really knows at this point. There's a lot of experimenting going on. I think definitely 50-50 is hybrid. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, that's a really nice, easy one, isn't it? It's got 50% of each. It's a hybrid. 60%, 40%, we don't really know. And there's a lot of experimenting going on in the market to find out what consumers want. And I think that if we look at the short term at the market at the moment, People want to reduce their meat content and or they want to increase their vegetable content. Now, if people just continue to eat exactly the way they are now and eat another 3 servings of vegetables and fruit every day, I think that's really not going to be a very healthy diet. They're going to be adding calories, kilojoules to their diet. So flexitarians and reducitarians, these products are very good because it enables them still to eat meat and to increase their plant-based intake. Same thing with dairy. They can have their dairy, they can get their calcium, they can get all the perceived benefits of milk, but they're getting a plant-based input as well. And let's not forget, there is nothing magical about where we currently get our protein. Why do we think when we think of protein, it has to be all meat or it has to be all plant or it even has to be meat or plant at all? There are all sorts of other things out there. And looking at this short term, the rising, say, flexitarians, reducitarians, these hybrid products are a great way of people to say, I'm reducing my meat intake and I'm simultaneously increasing my plant intake. And we hear a lot about companies who are on a mission-based, plant-based companies, who what they want to do is eliminate animal agriculture. Personally, my view is there is no way that plant-based products will replace conventional animal products. It's not going to happen. Now, the reason I say that is when I buy a plant-based product, I know it's plant-based, but how good it tastes, no matter how much it looks like a meat product, I know it's not. Now, you might say people won't care. Well, I'll give you an example. I went to a conference, marketing lady got up there and she said they did the work for McCafe. They did McCafe coffee, McDonald's coffee versus Starbucks, blind tasting. McDonald's won. Then they labeled them Starbucks, McDonald's. Guess what? Starbucks won. Because people just knew the McDonald's couldn't be better than Starbucks. It had to be worse. So whether it's physiological or psychological, personally, I believe people always want to eat meat. Now, we'll come to the longer term, there may still be options on the meat that you eat. You may not have to get that from an animal. I think in the medium term, we're going to see a lot more experimentation around hybrid products and what people put into them to test the market, to test what people want to see. So I think that's going to be really, really interesting. We can envisage, I think, in many ways, the short term. And my view, I think we can envisage the long term. I think the medium term is the most interesting part of the future, the most interesting segment to see what will actually happen. Because I think if we look at the long-term hybrid products, in my mind, are based around cellular agriculture products. And whether that's cellular agriculture when you're talking about muscle cells and fat cells being blended with plant-based products to make really unique and different products, or whether you're talking about companies like Perfect Day in the US, they grow whey protein using synthetic biology. So they use yeast to make whey protein. Now, you could have a milk hybrid product that actually has never seen anything come from an animal itself, a living animal. It came from the ingredients made by synthetic biology. So the long-term hybrid products may not involve animal agriculture, conventional animal agriculture at all. They involve cellular agriculture, whether that be dairy proteins, say we have whey protein, casein as well. And we're seeing those products can be combined with plant-based ingredients and even cellular agriculture fats to make hybrid products. And there's a few companies around that are doing those products. And the most interesting ones are the ones doing cellular agriculture fat. I think they're most fascinating companies around, and there's a lot of potential in those products. So that's my view. Short term, we're seeing a lot of the products that I've put on the screen before. Medium term, very volatile. What's going to take over? What's going to happen? And long term, I think we're going to see the rise of cellular agriculture products combined with plant-based proteins in particular. And when I look at some of the forecasts made by some companies, market research companies, they only give you three options. They tell you either you're going to have conventional animal agriculture meat, you're going to have plant-based meat, or you're going to have cellular agriculture meat. I think they're wrong. I think the biggest market will be hybrid products, because hybrid products can be tailored. We can make unique products we've never seen before. There's nothing magical about getting your protein from a hamburger or from plant-based products. I think that medium term where we see brand new, never before seen products come to the marketplace would be extremely interesting. And by medium term, I'm talking maybe 5 to 10 years, longer term, 10, 15, 20 years. I think one thing I can absolutely say for certain, it's going to be a really, really interesting time. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tony, for this clear presentation and forecast on the market and consumer trends. Do we have a question for Tony? So I have maybe one. What is the difference of acceptance consumer between European and US market, for example? Because our consumer is already ready to eat agriculture cells and cellular meat.
Look, I think if we look at plant-based, I mean, the two biggest markets really what are in Europe, and that's Germany and the UK, biggest penetration of plant-based products. Mm-hmm. We're seeing far more penetration in the US now, led by Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat. And we're seeing though all sorts of other people come into the US market. So I think at one stage, go back 2 or 3 years, there was a distinct difference between the two markets, between Europe, the UK, and looking at the US. I think they are more converging now towards having a similar sort of view on the desirability of plant-based products. I think the aim of all these companies, of course, is not vegans or vegetarians. It is meat eaters, flexitarians, and that's basically the target market. And I think wherever you go in the world, that is the target market. That's where the money is. It's not with 3%, I think, or whatever it was that Mike said, 3-4%. If you're aiming for your maximum, you're aiming for a slice of 3 or 4% of the market, you're not going to make nearly as much money as if you're going for a slice of the other 97%.
Yeah. And we have another question from Ellen Fursen. Is the concept of hybrid not too difficult for consumers to understand? And what is the strategy do you use the best to put in on the market? What do you think?
Oh, sorry, I missed the first bit of that one, Liz. What was that?
Is the concept of hybrid is not too difficult to understand for consumers?
Look, I think if you were to have a category, hybrid products, I think, yes, consumers would go, what is that? But if you make it really simple, like the people do at Danish Crown, it's 50-50. It's 50% meat, it's 50% vegetables. I think that's a very simple thing for consumers to grasp. You just simply describe the product. I think if we try and get too clever and create a hybrid category in the chiller cabinet, I think then yes, that would be a problem. Mm-hmm. Because don't forget, we sell consumers benefits.
Mm-hmm. And do you know if hybrid products are regulated somehow? Because you mentioned that 50-50 is a hybrid product, but yeah, I guess from my side, I guess it's not yet defined, but.
Yeah, look, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, it used to be that regulations were set to minimize the amount of non-meat you could put in meat products. So definition of sausage in Australia, 66% meat, maximum percentage of fat. And that was to protect people that they weren't getting sold too much plant-based filler. Now people are going, I don't care what I call it. I'm going to make it with 50-50. And I think the regulators are really going to struggle. I mean, traditionally regulators have had a long horizon to be able to see things coming and put regulations in place. And as we all know, technology and innovation becomes exponential, and I think it's going to be really, really difficult. I think we're going to see people put products out in the marketplace to see what happens, because people want to say, I have put lots of plant-based products in my burger. I have put plant-based milk in my dairy milk. Now, where do these sit? I think this is going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah. And we got two other questions, but I guess this question we will have answer following next presentation. So thank you, Tony.